everyone, this is Angelica and today we're going to talk about what foods are best to avoid when you're on your healing journey. So a huge part of healing in Ayurveda is removing the cause of what's caused the illness in the first place. We call this nidana in Ayurveda. So it's really important to understand especially what foods may be contributing to my digestive issues, my irregular bowel movements, my gas, and my bloating, and how can I remove them from my life so that my body can finally heal? Because the truth is, your body is so intelligent and knows how to heal as long as we get out of the way and bring in foods in the proper environment to nurture it. So always when we are teaching Ayurveda at Soulful Veda, we teach you a divine feminine form, meaning to trust your intuition. We are never going to tell you hard and fast rules. You can't do this. You have to only be doing that. That is not how Ayurveda works in our perspective. So if any of this doesn't resonate, take what only resonates with you right now. And all I ask is for you to observe and question how your body is responding and what your body is telling you, because that is ultimately the best wisdom that you will have. Okay, so first I want to talk about some food combining rules. So when I'm working with clients, this is something that I look at right away because it's something that is low-hanging fruit and something really easy that we can avoid. So a lot of times when there is a low Agni, a low digestive fire, and digestion is not optimized, it's important to look at what foods we're combining into our diet. Number one in Ayurveda is never to combine any foods with dairy. And that's because a lot of times in our culture, we combine fruit with dairy. Well, fruit is a simple sugar that digests in the body right away. It has high prana, it gives us life. However, dairy does not. Dairy takes a longer time. And actually, when it combines with fruit, this starts a fermenting process, and the food actually starts to sit and make your stomach sour, and it takes a much longer to digest. So that's oftentimes we have upset stomachs. We don't know why, where it came from. Pretty much it's when we combine dairy with anything. This is just an example of fruits of how that process happens, but pretty much combining dairy with a lot of different foods is too much on the system. And we're gonna go a little bit more into what dairy land means in a bit. Another food combining rule is combining really heavy foods. Having something with pizza and pasta is going to be so heavy. You know, when you're on Thanksgiving, you're enjoying your Thanksgiving meal, and it's so delicious and nurturing, and it's amazing that we can have all those foods for a meal. But if we were to do that every day, we'd feel so lethargic and sleepy and heavy. It's important that we bring balance when we're talking about eating Ayurvedically. So having foods like turkey and stuffing are not going to make us feel vibrant and full of life all the time. It's important that we're always bringing things into balance. Another good example of this is if we have meat and potatoes. Both are really heavy foods. It would actually be better if we balanced that. If we had meat with a vegetable, or if we wanted the potatoes and we had that with something like legumes and some lighter leafy vegetables, so that we can balance the energies in our body. So if this sounds like you, if you're starting to feel heavy after a meal, or like your meals are just not digesting, just take a look at how you're combining your foods and try to combine the foods based on similar energetics. So you can go back and listen to my previous videos talking about what diet is best for Vata, Pitta, and Kapha types. And once you understand what elements you want to bring into the diet for your doshic imbalance, you'll start to realize that you can start to pair a lot of those elements together. Okay, so let's get into some foods that are often trouble for a lot of people. And again, I know I'm speaking pretty generally here because I don't have your uniqueness in front of me. So take what works, and you know your body best. But oftentimes what I see is very problematic for clients is too much caffeine. I see that coffee is just taken from one end of the spectrum to the next. And so coffee can be really Pitta and Vata vitiating. So if you have a Pitta or a Vata imbalance, chances are this may not be nurturing for your healing journey. I know that is hard to say. And so I'm just going to give you a moment to have some love and compassion for yourself, because I'm not telling you to stop drinking coffee. I am just telling you the energetics of it and what it can contribute to your body. So if you have a Pitta imbalance and you have that inflammation, well, coffee has a lot of that fire element to it because of that caffeine. It's really stimulating, and also it really activates the liver, because a lot of adrenaline is shot into the body, and so the liver has to catch up and clean up all that adrenaline. That's a lot of work on pitta when pitta already is trying to clean out the liver. Now for vatas, that coffee element, it's dry and it's depleting, and if we know we have too much coffee, it causes anxiety and worry. So it always baffles me that vatas are having so much coffee and they don't know why they feel so anxious. Well, that caffeine is actually contributing to it. And at first, we give up coffee, it may seem like it's the end of the world, as with a lot of habits that we have to let go of. Don't worry, I've got plenty of mine that I've had to constantly shed throughout my lifetime, especially learning Ayurveda. But once we do, we realize that we don't need it anymore. Our mind was relying on it. Our body actually does just fine without it. So my recommendations, if you are so in love with coffee, you don't have to give it up. But just test out in your body and observe how you feel right after you have that cup of coffee or that second cup of coffee. And just start to experiment. Maybe you decrease your coffee by 50% just to see how you feel. If your body responds in a positive way, then keep going. And most of the time, it is just finding a replacement of something that's warm and tastes yummy to you. That's pretty much what we want out of our coffee experience. So if that is you, there are so many alternatives out there right now of having alternative teas that can give you that same warm and feel good sensation that coffee can give you. Okay. Some other foods that I've known to be problematic is going to be foods or cooking with industrial oils. There's lots of problems with it. They're so processed and they cause a lot of inflammation in the body, especially if you have chronic conditions and you're not seeing change in your body. Most likely you need to cut these oils out for the time being, because again, it's removing that cause of what's causing the symptoms in the first place. So canola oil, super bad. Soy based oils, grapeseed oils, sunflower oils, and there is a bunch of information. You could just Google what oils are industry oils that are really processed. It's hard to navigate out there, but the oils that I love to cook with are going to be olive oil and coconut oil. Those are best for my body and they have been best for all of my clients as well. And it's super important to acknowledge that when we go out to eat, most of the time we don't know what oils they're cooking in. So if you are on a healing journey and you want to see dramatic transformation, ask the restaurant that you're at, what oils they cook in. Try to go to restaurants that cook with olive oil or even coconut oil and see how that can dramatically change your digestion. Okay, some other food items on this list that I actually got this from the medical medium, and I love the medical medium's information. I have found it to be so profound for my healing journey as well as my clients. And some of the ingredients that he lists as well are going to be citric acid, artificial flavors, MSG, and artificial sweeteners. So I tested this out in my own body. I used to use artificial sweeteners, and when I took that away, I saw dramatic results in my healing, and it really lowered inflammation in my body. And the same thing with MSG and artificial flavoring and citric acid. These are additives that are put to make, they're preservatives basically to make a longer shelf life for foods to live. And we don't want that happening inside of our body. We want foods that are full of prana, full of life force energy, that actually give us energy, and they don't need to stick in our bodies for years on end, because then we need to cleanse. So I have found it to be really helpful to eliminate those foods as well. And other foods that have been known to trigger chronic conditions are going to be gluten and dairy. And I know this is already popular and we've already heard this. And if you are feeling triggered by this, again, I'm not telling you to give up these foods. I am telling you just to be an observer and how they feel. Isolate them. Most of the time, we don't even know how gluten works in our body or how dairy works in our body, because we usually combine them all together and it just seems like everything's up in the air. So get really clear on how each of these foods in isolation really work in your body and what reactions that you have. Sometimes you might notice little skin conditions once you remove gluten and then put it back into your body. You might notice more inflammation, like puffiness in your face, or slower digestion. Things like this. Just start to be an experimenter and see what foods. These foods I've known to be, especially when you have digestive issues, when you remove them, it helps to really lower your inflammation load. It also helps to lower the burden on your liver. The liver is the king organ that can really cleanse a lot of the pathogens and bacteria that we have to constantly cleanse in our body in order to stay healthy. So you can read more about that on the Medical Medium site. He gives really good information on why each of these foods can contribute to more inflammation and more chronic conditions in our body. I found it to be super helpful. And the last ones I'm going to talk about are corn, soy, and eggs. And he gives a way better explanation than I will on his website. So I will leave you to that to read on that. And again, I can't emphasize enough, just experiment some of these in your body. There's probably one of those where you're like, I already know that does not work in my body. And so just eliminate it by 50% into your diet. See how your body responds. And I promise you those results are what's going to drive you to keep going and to eliminate more foods that may not be helpful for your healing journey right now. All right, everyone, I'd love to hear what foods below that you are going to experiment with, to take out of your diet, and to start your healing journey.